You clicked on this video because you are dealing with depression. And I just want to start off by saying this. I relate to you. I know exactly how you're feeling. As a matter of fact, I have been through depression through various stages of my life. And my most recent episode of depression led me to a thankfully failed suicide attempt. And I'm not saying this to gain sympathy or gain attention or anything like that. I have talked about these things in the past, but I'm saying this to say that I know how you feel. When you get to that point that you're willing and ready to take your own life, that's the lowest point you can get to in life. That's the lowest point that you can get to, because anything beyond that means that you won't be alive to watch this video. Now, with that being said, thankfully I have been able to implement some very effective habits and routines to help me ascend from that place of wanting to take my own life. And that's what I want to share with you in this video. I want to share with you exactly how I was able to transform my own life and create my new beginning, manifest my new sense of purpose and my new sense of drive for being alive. The first thing that you need to do to overcome your depression is you need to start waking up earlier. Now, I know this sounds like a very surface level solution to a very intricate and complex problem, but the reason why this is so effective is because none of these other habits matter if you don't have the time to implement them. So the first thing you need to do is create more time in your day to be able to implement the other practices which will help you overcome your depression. Now, this is also a twofold benefit, because if you are depressed or if you've been depressed, then you know that one of the hardest things that you'll ever do while you're depressed is getting out of bed. Literally just getting out of bed in the morning becomes one of the most tedious and strenuous tasks that you will ever face in your life, because you don't have a reason to get up. And that's something that I'll get to later on in the video, but for now, we need to focus on breaking that habit. Because in you doing that, you're only perpetuating the reasons why you're depressed in the first place, which again, I will get to later on in the video. But you need to start waking up earlier. Set an alarm for any time before noon that you know you can sustain. Don't set an alarm for 4 a.m. knowing that you'll only be able to do that for 3 days. Set an alarm for 11 a.m. because that's something that you'll be able to sustain for years on end, if not at least months on end. Wake up earlier. Create more time in your day to implement these other practices. Now, that being said, the next practice that you can implement into your life in order to overcome your depression is therapy. And that brings me to BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and accessible. This is a very important mission because finding a therapist can be very difficult, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by answering just a few questions, BetterHelp can help you get matched up with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/Jordan Green. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off of your first month of BetterHelp so that you can connect with the therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a therapist for free without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. Now, me personally, when I used BetterHelp, they hit the nail on the head the first time around. That questionnaire is very, very accurate, and my therapist, Janice, was able to help me through a very, very difficult time in my life, and I'm forever grateful for her and for them. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Just click the link in my description or visit betterhelp.com/Jordan Green. Okay, I can personally attest to the effectiveness of therapy in terms of finding and following your divine purpose. And that leads me into my next practice for overcoming your depression: finding your purpose. You need to find a sense of purpose. As I explained earlier, it can be very difficult to get out of bed in the morning when you don't have a reason to. Or even worse, in my opinion, when your reason for getting out of bed is something that makes you want to get back in bed. If you're doing something that you don't love to do, which I'll touch on that later on in the video, then you need to start looking for your purpose. Now, I would reckon that the majority of people in this world are not following their divine purpose. Now, I believe that everything's connected and that there are corrective measures, if you will, to correct this issue. That being said, I do believe that this world would greatly benefit from more people following their divine purpose. Now, I can't tell you what your purpose is, but what I can tell you is that it is more often than not at the intersection of your passions and your gifts. Think of the things that you are passionate about, the things that you would do for absolutely free 99, that you would do if there was no external reward, no destination to reach. Think about that thing or those things, and then think about the things that you're gifted at, the things that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. For example, in my case, I am gifted at writing. I'm very, very gifted at writing. It's something that I don't have to put forth a lot of effort into to be good at. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just coast on your natural talent. It means that you should identify that thing and then work at it as if you weren't good at it. That's what I'm personally doing in order to enhance my gift, and I'm combining it with my passion of spiritual development and just observing this world, seeing new things, experiencing new things, and acquiring insight and information. Those are the crossroads which create my purpose. For you, it will likely be something different. For example, if you're very gifted at speaking and you have a passion for sports, you should look into sports journalism. Think about it like that. Find the intersection between your gifts and your passions, and don't think in terms of how much money you can make from it. Don't go looking for career options, because a lot of times when you do this, you're carving a new path. You're creating a new niche. Now, if you're somebody who just wants to be an accountant and that's what you genuinely want to do, then by all means do that. But you need to find that reason to get out of bed in the morning. Now, I understand that if you already have a sense of stability in your life, it can be very difficult to let go of that in order to pursue your purpose with full force, with full tenacity. A great way to overcome this, and the next practice that you can implement to overcome your depression, is to create action-based goals. One of the biggest mistakes that I made in my YouTube journey was setting goals that were based on achievements, because in doing so, I got so focused on the idea of achieving things that I never stopped to think about whether or not I actually liked, or better yet, loved what I was doing. And once I achieved those goals, the sense of disillusionment basically broke me back down to where I was in the beginning of the journey. Meaning that I realized that I had not wasted my time because I learned a lot, but I had been very misguided in how I was proceeding in my life and what my idea of success was. And that's something that I've come to terms with over time, and now, as I explained earlier, I'm taking corrective measures by pursuing writing full-time, which is what I actually want to do. But if I could go back, I would, instead of setting goals to hit 1,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers or get monetized on YouTube, I would have set goals that were based on actions rather than outcomes. This is how you know whether or not you love what you do. If setting an action-based goal does not bring you a sense of joy, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Simple as that. That is not your purpose. That's not what you came here to do. That is not the contract that you signed with the divine, whoever or whatever you believe that to be. If you're thinking in terms of achievements, more often than not, that's rooted in the desire for external validation, which in turn is rooted in an inherent lack mindset. You feel like you are not good enough. You have self-esteem issues, and those are at the core of your depression, of everything that entails, of all of the negative aspects of not only your life, but of yourself. Because everything is rooted in that subconscious core belief that you are not enough. When you know in your heart and in your soul that you're enough, you give yourself the freedom, you give yourself permission to begin pursuing goals that are actually meaningful to you. And because the journey is the destination in this life, and you have to learn to enjoy and embrace the journey, what you'll find is that setting action based goals when you're in that state of mind of knowing that you're enough will allow you to find a much deeper sense of joy than any achievement or accolade could ever bring you. I know this from firsthand experience because I hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I did something that I did not think I could ever do. I went out and did it, and I realized that it wasn't what I wanted. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to write these poems. That's what I cared about. So, in other words, set action-based goals, and that will help you pinpoint what you should actually be doing with your time and with your life. And once you establish that sense of what you should and shouldn't be doing, the next thing that you need to implement into your life to overcome depression is you need to implement the improve or remove rule. Now, this is something that I learned to implement when I was 17 years old working at Chuck E. Cheese's. I was working at Chuck E. Cheese and I was getting paid, I believe, $7.75 an hour. They had me dancing in the costume and cleaning the tables, cleaning up the equipment, doing all of this work that I didn't want to do for very, very little money, even at the time, even as a senior in high school. And I was balancing that with schoolwork. And I remember about a week into the job, I had a conversation with myself in which I asked myself, why am I doing this? Why am I actually doing this? And then I realized I'm doing this solely for money. And I said, okay, if I can accept the fact that I'm only doing this for money, how can I go about improving my situation? And I did everything that I possibly could. I did everything in my power. But when you're in a position like that, you don't really have any power. And because I had the leverage to say that I don't need this job right now, I quit. But if I didn't have the leverage, then I simply would have continued to improve the situation as much as I possibly could, and then just work with what I had. In other words, you need to figure out how you can, first of all, shift your perception and think about making your situation better. And then if you've done everything that you possibly could, everything in your personal power, you've controlled what you can control, and you're still miserable doing it, then quit. Remove it from your life, be it a job, a relationship, a degree that you're pursuing that you know you don't actually want. Again, going back to the action-based goals versus the achievement-based goals. You need to remove the situation from your life. If you can't improve it anymore and you are still miserable, it will always be worth removing it. Now, I understand this can be a very scary concept, and I also understand that I'm in a privileged position to be able to say something like this. I was able to come back to my parents' house. Not everybody has that luxury. But what I can tell you is that everyone watching this, you included, have access to the internet, which means that you have access to infinite possibilities. You have access to all of the information that you need. You have access to mentorship. You have access to a community. You have access to all of these things. I'm living proof of that. Although this wasn't what I actually wanted to do with my life, in my soul that is, I was still able to do it with just a little bit of hard work. And newsflash, in life, you can't get around hard work. You're either going to work hard to do what you want to do, or you're going to work hard to do something that you don't want to do. And for me, I realized that when we talk about the improve or remove rule, the best way I could improve that understanding was to do something that I love to do.